As more and more people grow weary waiting for a supposed localization of Yokai Watch 4, they show a lot of excitement towards the idea of playing Yokai Watch's battles in real time. From a lot of my own experience, many seem unaware of the fact that that's always been around in the series. So I'm going to go over a brief history of Yokai Watch's real-time battling. Originally introduced in Yokai Watch 2 with bony spirits, fleshy souls, and psychic specters, the game came with an optional side mode called Busters, or Blasters in English. If you owned a Yokai's medal in your playthrough of Yokai Watch 2, you can play as any of those yokai in real-time battle to take on strong bosses for rewards. The original bosses were the 3 Onis, but expanded during the Oni Evolution update into a multitude of others. This feature was a necessity for medallion completion because certain yokai or fusion items were among those rewards. It was a neat concept that added a ton of content and challenge to a game already rich in content and challenge, but it wasn't without its problems. The mode was pretty stiff compared to much later real-time action RPGs level 5 made down the line, with how there was no dodging and item use was pretty limited. Yokai Watch 2 may have sold like hotcakes in its homeland of Japan, but in the Western world, it is another story. The United States is also vast in terms of geography, with either a dense population in some parts of the country, and a very spread out, isolated community of individuals in another. The reason why that's important is because the Busters mode in Yokai Watch 2 supports local play only. You would need people nearby with their own 3DSs and copies of the game to really get the most out of the feature. Thankfully, that's where the spin-off game Yokai Watch Busters Red Cat Core and White Dog Squad come in. Using the Busters system they introduced in Yokai Watch 2, they improved on the formula greatly. It introduces far more bosses that come at selectable, even harder difficulties, an equipment crafting system for powerful equipment to make dealing with those bosses easier, and proper online play as well as local play. You can also play with computers as allies to make up your team, but the AI is not all that great for more complex boss fights. It is no exaggeration to say that this rendering of Yokai Watch Busters is similar to the Monster Hunter games. Yokai were given 3 or even 4 moves total as opposed to just 2. Yokai now have unique skills and a proper stat system in place instead of letter ranks for their stats, which allowed monsters to stand out way more in the real-time setting. The entire roster of Yokai Watch 2 is available to play as. In addition, completely new and never before seen befriendable yokai introductions were added on afterwards, with the free Moonrabbit Crew update making the game so rich in variety. The game can also scan overseas QR codes for Crankakai coins that allow you to befriend certain yokai much easier. Although the 2 versions of Yokai Watch Busters were spin-offs, a good amount of the improvements of this system carried over quite well to the main series with Yokai Watch 3, which had an alternative take on utilizing the Busters minigame mode found in 2 and in the spin-offs. The Busters T mode, or Blasters T, is very different from before as it plays far more like a roguelike game, where you advance through random dungeon floors for treasure, much like the Mystery Dungeon games. However, they play in real time like the other level 5 games, such as Snack World that came after. Yokai Watch 3's Busters T mode kept the online play, thankfully, and helped a ton to reduce more obnoxious grinding aspects previous titles suffered from with the help of the treasure you can get. Busters T also differs from the 2 Busters entries prior in that it did not include features like the Big Boss mode and the equipment crafting system, although it is possible to find equipment in Busters T in the overworld. Notably, yokai now have 2 moves again plus a regular attack action, instead of 3 or 4 moves plus the attack action as Red Cat and White Dog had. Still, I find that easier to forgive when you consider how huge of a game Yokai Watch 3 is on its own, with Buster's Tea being another game on top of that. It should also be noted that this roguelike take on the Buster system also carries over to Yokai Watch Busters 2. Having played Yokai Watch 4 a lot for myself, all in all, you could easily say Yokai Watch 4 is just the Buster's battle system we've already had for years, but now taking the forefront as the game's main battle system, with an MP stat, unique human playable characters, and a smaller roster of monsters with a bit more move options. It's still a very different game from its predecessors, especially when you account for how it was built from scratch. However, if you're interested in playing a monster collector game in full real-time battles, that's also a Yokai Watch game localized into English, just bear in mind that you can already do that.